Hey friends, what up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Dalet, Daf 84 of Masechta Yoma. Daf 84, I would say it's a funny little daf, except for the fact that it's not so small. But it's interesting. It's kind of like, kind of reminds me a little bit of like Daf Hey of Masechta Brachos. I guess you'll see why. At least for a little bit of it. And then, anyways, we talk about like that Kelev Shoteh, that foolish dog that we started discussing recently. Also, then it discusses different like remedies on Shabbos and halachos around that. And then we discuss Pikuach Nefesh. Pikuach Nefesh is docheh Shabbos. That if you save somebody, it could be, you could save somebody on Shabbos, even if it means you have to do malacha. And then an interesting discussion at the end of Rov, of going after the majority. So that is what's on the agenda for today. Let us get started. Daf Pei Gimel Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Mishnashachu Kelev Shoteh v'chulei. Somebody who was bitten by a foolish dog. So there was machlokas in the Mishnah. The Tanakama says it's Baba Maisis, that they would take epis a liver lobe. What's a liver lobe? I don't know. I know what liver is. Well, kind of. Liver, it's like part of, I have a liver, I think. Akaponim. So, what were we talking about? Right. So they would take, like livers, and like if like you got bit by this foolish dog, so you would take like dog liver and eat it. So the Tanakama says, meh, Baba Maisis, not true. It's just, what's it called? Whatever it is. Rav Masi ben Chorish says, no, it is true. It's a real thing, and therefore you can do it on Shabbos. Now, no, lav dafka Shabbos, kilu in general. Can you eat dog liver? Okay. So, Mishnashachu Kelev Shoteh v'chulei. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Chamisha Dvarim nemu b'Kelev Shoteh, there were 5 things that are said about this foolish dog. Piv pasuach, it keeps its mouth open. V'reicho nodef, it's got bad breath. V'oznav sruchos, it's got big droopy ears. Uznav munach al yarchosov, and its tail is like resting on its like legs. Umahalech b'tzidei drachim, and it walks around on the sides of roads. V'yeshom af noveach ve'in kolo nishma. To those who say that also this type of a foolish dog, it barks, but it makes no sound. All right. Mimai have, how does a dog become a foolish dog? Rav says, well, the witches play with this dog, and voila, it becomes foolish. Shmuel says, no, there's some kind of like bad, evil spirits on it. Well, the nafkamina is, how do you exterminate, how do you terminate, kill this dog? Like, do you have to do it from a distance? So, according to Shmuel, it says that there's like bad vibes, there's ruach ra. So yes, you would have to kill the dog from a distance, so stay away. So you have to throw something at it, like an arrow or something. But according to Rab, who says it's just, I don't know, witches playing with it, you wouldn't necessarily have to keep your distance, okay? Tana Kavasa de Shmuel, we talk about Brisa supporting Shmuel. Kshehargan also, Ela B'davar an Nizrak, that we have a Brisa that says that when you kill such a dog, a silly, foolish dog, you have to do it with something that you could throw at it from a distance. The Chayiv be mistaken, denochis lemayis. If this foolish dog rubs against you, it's dangerous. If it bites you, it's lethal. The Chayiv be mistaken matakante. So what do you do if it rubs into you? He said if it rubs you, it's dangerous. So what do you do? Nishlach monei v'nirhid. Strip down, take off all your clothes, and bolt. Rav Huna breder Rav Shua chavbe achad minayu. Rav Huna breder Rav Yeshua, a foolish dog rubbed against him. Beshuka, in the market. Shalchinu lemani v'royit. He removed his clothing and bolted. Omer kanti ba'atzmi achochmas chai ba'alea. He says, phew, I was just makayim the pasuk of achochmas chai ba'alea, that wisdom keeps those who have it alive. Meaning, because he knew the remedy, namely strip down naked and bolt, so that saved his life. Dinochis le mais. If you get bitten by this kelev shoite, it's lethal. Maitakante. So what do? Amarbai nesi mishcha da'apa. This is why I was saying that it's similar to like daf hey. Although interesting, I think daf hey of Masechta Brachos, daf had like Rav Bevai bar Abaye. I think that's where Nagos Mitzuyunim Mitaka says that it's Bevai and not Bibi. So it says Abaye, what you do is nesi mishcha da'apa dichra. So you take the skin of a male polecat. I don't know what a polecat is. I didn't Google it, so I don't know. Polecat. What's a polecat? V'nichtov ale, and you write on the skin of the polecat, on a planya bar planyasa, me, so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, amishcha de'apa dichra kasivna Allah. I'm writing to you upon the skin of a male polecat. Kanti kanti klirus v'amrila kandi kandi klirus ka ka Hashem tzvakos amen amen sela. What do you want me to tell you? That's what you write. V'nishlachinu l'manei, and then you take off your clothing, v'likbarinu, and you bury the clothing, bekivrei ad tzerisa yarchi. You bury your clothing, I don't know, I guess in the cemetery for a year, for 12 months. V'nafkinu v'niklinu b'tanura, then take out the clothing, roast it in an oven, v'nivdvinu l'kitmei aparshas drachim, then spread out the ashes on the crossroads. And over the course of this year, while your clothes are buried in the cemetery, when you drink water, make sure that when you drink water during this year, you dafka only drink water with a copper straw. Lest you see the reflection of a demon, and that can be very dangerous. So just use a straw. Like Abba Bar Marta, who happens to be Abba Bar Minyomi, his mother made for him a golden straw, and that seems to have been fine. It wasn't copper, but I guess as long as you don't see your reflection, it's good enough. Alright, sounds good to me. Any questions? Let's go weiter. Varam Rav Masya, and Rav Masya ben Choresh also said that if a fellow has like some kind of sickness in his mouth, so he could take medicine even on Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan chosh b'tzfidna, was it? I thought it was tzfidna, b'tzafdina. I guess that's how to say it. Tzafdina. Rabbi Yochanan chosh b'tzafdina. So I thought it was tzfidna. Wasn't Koponim. So Rabbi Yochanan had this tzafdina, which was some kind of disease, I guess, that starts with your mouth. He went to a certain noble woman that she, I guess, knew the remedy for tzafdina. And she made for him a tincture that he was to drink on or to consume on Thursday and Friday. He says to her, okay, well now what do I do on Shabbos? She says, don't worry about it. You don't need it for Shabbos. I guess meaning he went to her mistam, I guess, on Thursday, she made him a tincture. On Friday, she made him a tincture. And he says, look, Lemaisa, tomorrow Shabbos, what do I do? So she says, don't worry, you don't need it tomorrow. And he says, yeah, but what if I do need it tomorrow? What do I do? So she said to him, all right, well, swear to me that you're not going to tell anybody my secret tincture. So he swore, Le'elah di Yisrael lo maglina. He says, to the God of Israel, I will not reveal. Navak drasha b'firka. Sure enough, he then went out and told everybody. In his public shir, he told everybody the tincture. Even after he swore to her, to the God of Israel that he wasn't going to share. V'yishtabala le'elah Yisrael di Yisrael. What do you mean? How did he do that? He swore to the God of Israel that he wouldn't share this tincture. Oh. I read that wrong. But he swore to her. So the answer is, so he says, yeah, but I swore that I'm not going to reveal it to the Eibishter. But I didn't say anything about not revealing to the Yidden. Kila, when he swore to the God of Israel that he won't reveal it, it means, he said, yeah, all I did was swear that I wouldn't reveal it to the Eibishter. But I could reveal it to other, to the Yidden. But what about the Chilul Hashem? I mean, it's very fancy that, you come up with this, nice loophole. But Lemaisa, what about the fact that this noblewoman, she made you swear, she said, don't tell people, and you told people. That Tzachil Hashem, it desecrates the name of God. So the Megalile Meikar, no, he already told her the plans from the beginning, meaning after he made his nice, interesting loophole, he said to her, by the way, there was that loophole, just said, and she was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, loopholes, very nice. My Abdalay, so what exactly was this tincture? Says Rav Ami, very simple. It's just yeast water, olive oil, and salt. That's it. Easy. Rabbi Yoma says it was taka, not yeast water, but yeast and olive oil and salt. Okay, very easy. Says Rav Ashi, the fat of the wing of a goose. Okay. Says Abai, look, I had tzafdina, and I tried all of these little tincture recipes, and they didn't work. I didn't get healed. Until a certain Arab told me, I see kashyasa dezesa. What you got to do is you got to take a pit of an olive lomalu tilsa that isn't a third of the way, grown, v'kalinu benura amara chadata, and roast these pits on a flame, on a fire, on a new hoe. V'adbik b'kachi dare, and then you take the ashes from these pits and you put it on your teeth. Abdi achi v'tzai. Says Abai, I did this, and lemaise, push, it worked. Okay. Now how do you get safdina? We talked about the remedies, but how do you get it in the first place? From eating very hot wheat bread. From the leftover hash of fried fish. Fried fish hash. Fried fish hash. That's how you get tzafdina. And what are the symptoms of tzafdina? Well, if ever you put anything in your mouth and your teeth bleed, tzafdina. Okie dokie. Rabbi Yochanan kichosh b'tzafdina averachi b'shabbata v'itzi. So, Rabbi Yochanan, so when he had tzafdina, so he did this remedy on Shabbos. So he made this remedy for himself, this tincture for himself on Shabbos, and he was healed. Rabbi Yochanan echi averachi. How could Rabbi Yochanan have done this tincture on Shabbos? How do you do refuah on Shabbos? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak shani tzavdina. Says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, well, because tzavdina is different, i.e., since it starts with the mouth and finishes with the intestines, it's very dangerous. Although, right, actually Rashi says you can actually skip that last line, so let's pretend we didn't read it. Says Reb Chia bar Abba to Reb Yochanan, says Reb Chia bar Abba to Reb Yochanan, when you say, Reb Yochanan, when you made this tincture on Shabbos, what was it like? Were you holding like Ramasi ben Chorish, who says that somebody whose mouth is bothering him, he's allowed to make medicine even on Shabbos? But why, asked Reb Chia bar Abba to Reb Yochanan, why would you be holding like Ramasi ben Chorish and not like the rabbis? Right? Ramasi ben Chorish says if you have some kind of disease in your mouth on Shabbos, you can make this medicine. You can make this medicine, implying that the rabbis disagree and say you would not be able to make this medicine. So Reb Chia bar Abba is asking Reb Yochanan, when you made this medicine on Shabbos, what were you holding like Rav Masi ben Chorish? But why would you hold like Rav Masi ben Chorish and not like the rabbis? So says Reb Yochanan that no, actually says Reb Yochanan that the rabbis would agree with Rav Masi ben Chorish that you would be allowed to make this, tincture on Shabbos if you have tzafdina, if you have this disease in your mouth. Where they disagree with Rav Masi ben Chorish is only regarding the eating dog liver to heal the bite of a kelev shoteh. However, says Rabbi Yochanan, the rabbis would agree with Rav Masih ben Chorish regarding this medicine on Shabbos for mouth diseases that can be deadly. Let's say that the following taka supports Rabbi Yochanan, right? To say that the Chacham agree with Rav Masih ben Chorish regarding medicine for mouth disease on Shabbos. When somebody has jaundice, you can feed him the meat of a donkey. If somebody's bitten by a foolish dog, so then you feed it the liver, I guess, of the kelev shoteh, or maybe some other dog. I don't know. I'm not sure. Somebody who has this like mouth disease, you can feed him, you can give him medicine on Shabbos. That's what Masih ben Chorish's opinion. The Chacham say, Be'elu ein b'hem mishum refuah, which the Chacham respond and they say, these don't have any real medicinal value. Be'elu lemutei mai. Now, the Gemara wants to know, when the Chacham say these don't have any medicinal value, implying, these don't have medicinal value, but something else does have medicinal value. So we just mentioned three things, right? We mentioned jaundice, right? Eating donkeys, which is number one. We also mentioned if you have if you get bitten by a kelev shoteh, and you eat the liver. And three, that if you have this mouth disease, you can treat it. The Chacham say these don't have any medicinal value. So which are the these that don't have medicinal value, and which then is the remaining one that does have medicinal value? So my love, the mute sam. So it doesn't imply that the eating the liver for the kelev shoteh and the eating the donkey for the jaundice, those don't have medicinal value, but the medicine for the mouth disease, that does have medicinal value. So we see that the Chacham agree with the Masih ben Chorish regarding that. Lo lemuti makizin dam lisrunchi, to which the Gemara says no. When the Chacham say these don't have medicinal value, it means all three of them don't have medicinal value, right? Eating donkeys for jaundice, eating dog liver for kelev shoteh bites, and having medicine for mouth disease, none of those have any medicinal value. What does have medicinal value, however, is bloodletting for sronchi, which is quincy. I don't know what quincy is. Q-U-I-N-S-Y. Quincy. That does have medicinal value, according to the rabbis. Hochinami mistava, and this taka makes sense. The Tanya, as we learn in the Brisa, Shlosha Dvarim Amar Bishma Rabbi Yossi, that Sheshav Mishum Rav Masih ben Chorish, that there were three things that Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi said that he heard from Rav Masih ben Chorish. Makizin dam l'sronchi, that you're allowed to bloodlet for quincy b'Shabbos, u'mishnishachol kelev shoteh machilin os mechatzer kavod shelo, and somebody who was bitten by a kelev shoteh, you can feed him from its liver. V'achoshish be'fiv matilin lo sam b'Shabbos, and somebody who he's got this mouth disease, you can give him medicine on Shabbos. And the Chacham, of course, respond and say, these don't have refuah. And again, the shaila is, when the Chacham say these don't have any real medicinal value, what's it talking about? Be'elu, lemutei mai, what are we excluding? My lab, atayte basraisa, for lemutei direisha. So we want to say that when the Chacham say these don't have any medicinal value, it's talking about the last two, right? We mentioned three things. We mentioned bloodletting for quincy, we mentioned the liver for the kelev shoteh, and we mentioned the medicine for the mouth disease. And the Chacham say these don't have any medicinal values. So we want to say that these means the last two items, the liver for the dog bite and the medicine for the mouth disease, don't have any medicinal value. But the first item, bloodletting for quincy, does have medicinal value. So that would support the notion that the Chacham agree with Rav Masih ben Chorish regarding bloodletting for quincy, but they would disagree regarding medicine for the mouth. Lo atarte dereisha kamaisa v'lemute deseifa. Okay, we say no. Actually, you could say that Chacham disagree with the first two things, with the bloodletting for quincy and with the liver for the dog bites, but they agree with the Masih ben Chorish regarding the mouth medicine on Shabbos, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan could respond to Rabbi Chiya bar Abba and say that Taka the Chacham agree with the Masih ben Chorish regarding what? regarding taking medicine on Shabbos for the mouth disease, and that's why Rabbi Yochanan was able to take this, create this tincture and consume it on Shabbos for its safdina. Tashma Kamanir Dutani Rabbi Bar Shmuel taught Uber Shericho. If you have a pregnant woman who smells, you smell something and like she needs to eat. So we're allowed to feed her, I believe he's talking about Yom Kippur, until she feels better. And somebody who's bitten by a kelev shota, you could feed it from the liver. And somebody who's got this mouth disease, you can give him medicine on Shabbos. That's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yossi, who says in the name of Ramas ben Charash. The Chachamim say that we agree with you with this. Again, the Chachamim sticking to their mahalach of being vague, saying we agree with you regarding this, but not with regarding to something else. What do they have to say that they agree with him regarding? If we're saying that it's talking about the pregnant woman, that you're allowed to feed her until she feels better, would anybody disagree with that? Obviously they agree with him regarding that. Elav, Asam, Shmamina. Rather, it must be what they're saying is that we agree with Ramas ben Charash regarding the medicine for the mouth disease. Rav Ashi Omar, Maslisan Amideka. Rav Ashi says you can also just imply from our Mishnah, as it says, Vod Omar of Masi ben Charash, Hachoshish befiv matin lo sam b'Shabbos v'lpigi rabbanon ale. That Rav Masi ben Charash says in our Mishnah that, meaning after the Tanakama says that you're not allowed to feed the liver for the dog bite, Rav Masi ben Charash says that you are. Rav Masi ben Charash then goes on to say that you're allowed to give medicine for this mouth disease, and the rabbis don't seem to argue on that. And if they did argue on that, to pligi rabbanon ale le'arvinu v'lesninu v'lefligu rabbanon b'sefer shmamina. And if the rabbis did argue on it, well then just like there was machlokas between the Chachamim and Rav Masi ben Charash regarding the dog bite, well then it should be clear that there's also machlokas with regard to medicine for mouth disease. And from the fact that, that certainly is not clear in the Mishnah, it must mean that the machlokas is limited to the dog bite and does not apply to the mouth disease, i.e. the rabbis agree with Rav Masi ben Charash that you'd be allowed to take medicine on Shabbos for this mouth disease, I guess because it could become mortally dangerous. Okay, let's go weiter. Where am I? Fine. So the Mishnah had said that you're allowed to take this medicine for this mouth disease on Shabbos because it's Safek nefashos, and Safek nefashos is lahakal. That when we have a doubt regarding if something could be, mortally dangerous, so then we're lenient. I'm sorry, not Safek nefashos lahakal, but Safek nefashos docheh Shabbos. Is that what the Mishnah said? Yeah. So how come we have to add that little bit? And because Safek nefashos is docheh Shabbos. Amar Yehuda Amar Rav lo Safek Shabbos zobovad ela amru ela afilu Safek Shabbos acheres. This is interesting. So it says of Yehuda Amar Rav that because what it's teaching, right? It says because it's Safek nefashos and Safek nefashos is docheh Shabbos. What's the point of that? And Safek nefashos is docheh Shabbos, because it's teaching that even if it's not just regarding this Shabbos, but even if regards the next Shabbos. What does that mean? Hey Chidami, what is this? For example, if a fellow is sick and they say, look, here's what you have to do to get better. Take this medicine for the next 8 days. Yoma shabbata. Now the first day, it's Shabbos right now, which means that if you have to take this medicine for 8 days, that means that day 1 is Shabbos and day 8 is Shabbos, which means that you're going to have to take it for 2 Shabboses. So Madetema may have thought to say, la'akibad la'orta. So maybe we should suggest that why don't you wait to start this regimen until after Shabbos, right, until Motzoi Shabbos, so you don't have to be, machal 2 Shabbos, so you don't have to take this medicine on 2 Shabbos, right? So meaning if the regimen is 8 days, day 1 and day 8 are going to be Shabbos, maybe we should suggest, why don't you hold off taking this medicine until Motzoi Shabbos, so that you'll start not on Shabbos, after Shabbos, you'll take it for 8 days, and it's fine. So next Shabbos, you'll still be taking this medicine, but at least you will only be taking the medicine for 1 Shabbos and not for 2 Shabbos. Kamash Malon. Therefore, what the Mishnah is teaching us is that Safek nefashot docheh Shabbos, to teach that no, even in this case, we would not suggest that he wait until Motzei Shabbos. Rather, you could start taking the medicine even on this Shabbos, and you will, even if that means that you're going to be taking medicine for 2 Shabboses and not just 1 Shabbos. Where am I? Tanya Ramiyachi, we talk also in a brayse like this. You can heat up warm water for a sick person on Shabbos, whether it is that he has, hot water for like tea or something, whatever, to give him to drink, or whether it is to bathe him, to rinse him off. Both use cases are acceptable. Skip the next 8 words. We don't say, well, why don't we wait and see if he gets better on his own? Rather, we heat up the water immediately. We don't say let's wait to see if he gets better on his own, because Safek nefashot is docheh Shabbos, so you can just heat up the water immediately. And it's not even just this Shabbos, but even if there's a Safek regarding another Shabbos, as we explained a minute ago, and you don't need to get a non-Jew or a kusi, or the Gra says a katan, a minor, to do it. We don't need to have a kusi or a nachri or a minor do it. You can even have a Jew who is chayv in mitzvahs can be the one to heat up this water, because Safek nefashot is docheh Shabbos. Now, if the recommendation to do these things were only by the way of women or kusim, so that wouldn't be enough, but they could join together to create an opinion. So therefore, if there were 3 people saying, 3 men saying don't do it, and then you have 2 men saying do it, then you have a woman who says, no, I also say that you should do it. Well, that would be enough to make it 3 against 3 and say Safek nefashot docheh Shabbos. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught that you're allowed to save somebody on Shabbos. And whoever is particularly active and fastidious, I guess, about it, all the better. Right? When it comes to saving a life on Shabbos, just do it. You don't have to ask a shaila, just do it. What does that mean? If you see a child who fell into the sea, so just spread out a net and chop him up. And whoever is, kind of faster and more excited to do it, all the better. You don't have to ask permission to do this. And even though memele, in the net, you might end up chopping a shtickle fish, but it's okay. It's not going to be considered fishing on Shabbos. Save the baby. If a baby fell into a pit, so you can, to get into the pit, you might have to dig up the side. You might, who's this? My neighbor? What's my neighbor doing? I wonder. Haven't seen him in a while. I don't know. I'll check it out after. My neighbor, Shy. So if you, if a child fell into a pit, so then you can take him out, even if it means you're going to have to dig away part of the side of the pit so you can get in. Whoever, if you're kind of faster to do it, gewaldig, and you don't have to ask any questions, just do it. Even though that means that memele, you're going to be creating some kind of a step for him to get out, but that's okay. So if you saw that there's a door, that a baby got locked inside some room, shovro motzio, so you could break down the door and extract the baby. Just go for it. You don't have to ask any questions. Even though when you break down the door, you might be thinking, this is gewaldig, I now have firewood, so it doesn't matter. Just break down the door, save the baby. You can, if there's a fire that could be dangerous and kill people, so you can extinguish it by putting out, like we learned in Masechta Shabbos, by putting out like different containers and pitchers and stuff, and then the water will break, they'll break and the water will go out. Just go for it. You don't have to ask any shilas. Even though by doing this you might be creating like coals and stuff that will be advantageous to you for Motzei Shabbos, it's okay, just do it, save the people. And we have to give all these cases. If we only had the first case of the baby who falls into the river, I might think that in that case I'm allowed to I'm encouraged to save the baby, because if I go and ask a shaila, the baby, it might be too late. The baby might get taken away. But a pit where the baby's just kind of sitting there, I might think that maybe I should ask the shaila. No, don't ask shailas. Baby gets stuck in a pit, you get him out. And if you mention the pit, that might just be because it's very scary. So extract the baby from a scary situation. But if the baby just gets stuck in a room, maybe you could somehow entertain him with nuts and things like that from outside and, keep the situation under control until after Shabbos. Tzricha said, no, even in that case, break down the door, extract the baby. Mechabun mafsikin, lomali, how come we have to say also that, you can kind of extinguish the fire? So that afilu chatzer acheres, even if the fire is in one chatzer and the people are in another chatzer, right? So currently, kind of it's not dangerous, but it can get dangerous. Still, you can extinguish the fire. Amr Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef, Amr Rav Yehuda, Amr Shmuel, lo hachu b'pikuach nefesh achar rov. That when it comes to pikuach nefesh, we do not follow the majority. What does it mean that we do not follow the majority by pikuach nefesh? If we're talking about a situation where there are 9 yidden and 1 non-yid, then why wouldn't we go after the rov to save people? Meaning, if there were 9 yidden and 1 non-yid, so then somebody gets trapped in a house, and we don't know if the house falls down, somebody gets trapped. We don't know, is the fellow who got trapped, is it the non-yid or is it a yid? So in that case, 9 of them were yidden, so we go after the majority, say it's a yid, and do whatever you can to extract the fellow. Inami, palga ufalga. Well, maybe it was half and half. Well, Safek nefashot lahakol. Well, if that's the case, then Safek nefashot lahakol, go save the person. Eladika tisha kusim v'yisrael echad. Well, so okay, it's talking about where there's 9 non-yidden and 1 yid, and a house falls down on one of them. So we might think, if you go based on the majority, well, the majority is non-yidden, so maybe you should not be able to do the extraction, to save the fellow. But anami pshita, actually, this is also obvious. Because 9 and 1 is a kavua. We know exactly, it's a fixed amount, 9 and 1. And we have, of course, the principle that we've seen before, is that whenever you have an established ratio, then we treat it like 50-50. And therefore, if we know that there are 9 non-yidden and 1 yid, so then we treat it like 50-50. And therefore, it's Safek nefashos and it's docheh Shabbos. So l'tzricha de parish l'chatzer acheres. So it's talking about, well, there were 9 non-yidden and 1 yid in one chatzer. Now, then one person went to a different chatzer, and that is where the trouble happened, and now this one person is trapped in a house. So, Ma'adetema called the parish meruba parish. So I might think to apply the principle, well, anything that gets separated gets separated from the majority. And therefore there's one fellow who left everybody else. If there were 9 non-yidden and 1 yid, so mistamah this fellow who left is a non-yid. And now the house falls down, so I might think that I would not, be able to extract the fellow, because mistamah it's a non-yid, kamash malon, tlo holchu b'pikuach nefesh achar rov. So we see that no, we don't go after the majority when it comes to pikuach nefesh, and therefore even though there were 9 non-yid and 1 yid, and this fellow separated himself, and I might think called the parish meruba parish, kamash malon, that you can nonetheless save the fellow. In fact, the Gemara, Ini, is this really so? If you have, in this case, where you have 9 non-yid and 1 yid, but also chatzer mefakrin, but chatzer acheres ein mefakrin. that says of Asi, the name of Yochanan, that if in this case we have 9 non-Yidin and 1 Yid, so then if it's in that Chatzer, so then you'd be allowed to, if this thing fell down, so then you'd be allowed to do on one person, then you'd be allowed to, do a search thing because, to save the person, because, but in a different Chatzer, if one of them left, you would not be allowed to rescue the one person because we'd have to be concerned about Kol the Parish Muba Parish, and therefore it's a non-Yid. Lo kasha the Parish Kulu or the Parish Miktsah Sayu. So we say, well, it depends. If all of them kind of went to the other Chatzar, and now all of them were in that second Chatzar, so then we could still apply, I imagine at this point it would be, I guess since everybody left, it would be called the because in that second Chatzar now you have 9 non-Yid and 1 Yid. So therefore you'd be allowed to save this one person in there because of However, if only some of them moved to the other Chatzar, so now you no longer have this 9 and 1, you no longer have this Kavua thing, and then now it's in a different Chatzar, and then the thing falls down on one person, well, at that point you no longer have the Kokavo Kamechza Mechzadam, you only have the fact that like some people went to this other Chatzar, in which case called the Parish Meruba Parish, and then it goes based on the majority, which is Nachrim, and then it falls on one person, so in that case it kind of no longer works. Okay, we'll stop it here for now. It's kind of in the middle of shtickle, but we'll pick up from here tomorrow. That was daf Pei Dal of Masechta Yoma. Shtickle all over the place, this daf. The daf began with sort of identifying what a kelev shota is, gave sort of the, how you can distinguish what exactly a kelev shota is. We said if you get rubbed by a kelev shota, it can be dangerous. But if you get bitten, it's lethal. We said, well, what do you do if you get bitten? You take the hide of a male polecat and you write all sorts of inyanim. Okay, sounds good. Drink from straws. And then we discussed this mouth disease, right? We said that Rabbi Yochanan got this tzaftina, this mouth disease, and he was able to heal it even on Shabbos. We then discussed, Rabbi Barashi says, but isn't that Ramasi ben Charsh's opinion? We said no. The Chacham also agree that when it comes to this mouth disease, since it can be dangerous, you can take medicine for it even on Shabbos. From there we got into discussion of what does it mean? Because Safek nefashot is docheh Shabbos. We said, well, even if it means that maybe you could work it out so you wouldn't have to be docheh Shabbos twice, even if it's just once, we say no. When it comes to pikuach nefesh, right, it's Safek nefashot is docheh Shabbos, and that is that, and you could prepare the remedies. And then we give a number of examples of how when it comes to pikuach nefesh, we don't ask questions, you just do it, right? If a baby falls into the sea, just save the baby, even if you might end up, capturing fish, in the net that you might use, whatever it is, when it comes to pikuach nefesh, if somebody can die, you don't ask questions, just go for it. And then we got to this principle at the end from Rav Yosef, the name of Rav Yehuda, and the name of Shmuel, that we do not follow the majority when it comes to pikuach nefesh, meaning even in a situation where you have a majority of non-Yidden and then a house falls on one person and it's Shabbos, we don't know who fell in, just save the person, don't worry about the majority being non-Yidden, just go for it, save the fellow. That was daf Pei Dal, daf 84 of Masechta Yoma. Hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.